Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the strange metal objects floating in space. His forearms crossed over his chest as he studied the human warning buoys. The things looked old and simple, like toys made by children. "What do these say?" he asked his translator. The smaller Zephyrian at the control panel clicked his claws nervously. "They warn us to stay out of human space, Admiral. They say we need permission to enter." Kethvar laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. His chitinous shell gleamed under the bridge lights. Around him, his crew of warriors prepared their weapons. They had been traveling through space for months, looking for new worlds to claim for the hegemony. "Permission?" Kethvar's voice was full of scorn. "From these soft pink creatures? Look at their pathetic defenses." The fleet of 12 Zephyrian warships moved past the warning buoys like they were nothing. Each ship was massive, built like a flying fortress with weapons that could destroy entire cities. The exotic matter engines hummed with power that could bend space itself. On the bridge, the sensor officer reported what he saw. "Admiral, I detect several small human ships in this system. They appear to be very primitive." Kethvar moved to the main display. The human ships looked like metal boxes compared to the elegant curves of Zephyrian vessels. "How many weapons do they have?" "Very few, sir. Maybe enough to fight pirates, but nothing that could threaten us." "Perfect." Kethvar's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. "The humans have something we want. I have heard they grow good food on their colony worlds. We will take what we need." Far from the alien fleet, Captain Sarah Chen sat in her command chair aboard the human patrol vessel Defiance Edge. Her ship looked small and weak next to the Zephyrian dreadnoughts, but appearances could be deceiving. "Ma'am," called her communications officer, "we're getting readings on 12 alien vessels. They just passed through our boundary markers." Sarah nodded calmly. She was a woman in her 40s with gray streaks in her dark hair. Her crew of 30 worked quietly around her, but she could feel their tension. "Did they respond to our warnings?" "No, Captain. They ignored everything." Sarah touched a panel on her chair. Instantly, a quantum signal shot across human space faster than light. Every human ship, station, and colony received the same message. Uninvited guests had arrived. "Take us closer," Sarah ordered. "But keep our distance. We need to see what we're dealing with." The Defiance Edge moved toward the alien fleet. To anyone watching, it looked like a small patrol boat approaching a group of battleships. The Zephyrians barely noticed it. On the alien flagship, Kethvar watched the approaching human ship with amusement. "They're coming to surrender, I think. Should we destroy them?" asked his weapons officer. "Not yet. Let them come closer. I want to see the fear in their eyes." Sarah's ship came within communication range. The Zephyrian translator tried to establish contact, but Sarah had already learned everything she needed to know. Her sensors had mapped every alien ship, counted their weapons, and measured their energy signatures. "Unknown vessels," Sarah broadcast on all frequencies. "You have entered human space without permission. You must leave immediately or face the consequences." Kethvar's laughter filled his bridge. "Consequences? From you?" He opened a channel to the human ship. "Little human, you are in no position to make threats. We go where we please and take what we want." "I'm giving you one last chance," Sarah said calmly. "Turn around and leave. No one has to get hurt, or what?" Kethvar sneered. "You'll attack us with your toy ship?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was sad. "I tried to warn you. Remember that." The Defiance Edge suddenly accelerated away from the alien fleet. To the Zephyrians, it looked like the humans were running in fear. "Cowards," Kethvar roared. "Follow them! We'll show them what happens when lesser species challenge the hegemony." The alien fleet moved deeper into human space, chasing Sarah's ship toward a blue-green world called New Terra. The planet looked peaceful from orbit, with white clouds and green continents. Perfect for conquest. But as they traveled, none of the aliens noticed the subtle changes happening around them. Space debris that had been drifting slowly began to move with purpose. Old satellites that seemed dead suddenly powered up with faint energy signatures. Asteroids shifted their orbits just slightly. On New Terra, Governor Elena Vasquez received Sarah's warning. She was a tough woman who had helped build this colony from nothing. Now she stood in the planet's command center, surrounded by screens showing the approaching alien fleet. "How long until they arrive?" she asked. 6 hours, replied her military advisor. 12 large warships heavily armed. Elena nodded. Begin evacuation procedures. Across the planet, colonists received emergency alerts. But this wasn't a real evacuation. Every person on New Terra knew what to do when uninvited guests arrived. They had trained for this day. Children and elderly people moved to underground shelters that were actually fortified command centers. Adults reported to positions throughout the colony. Farmers picked up weapons they had kept hidden in their barns. Teachers became soldiers. Doctors prepared field hospitals. The peaceful farming world began to transform into something very different. In space, more human ships appeared. They looked as weak as Sarah's vessel, and the Zephyrians barely paid attention to them. The aliens were focused on the prize ahead, a defenseless planet full of soft humans. "Admiral," reported the sensor officer, "I'm detecting some unusual readings from the planet." Kethvar waved a dismissive claw. "Probably their primitive technology failing under stress. Don't worry about it." But the readings weren't equipment failures. Deep under New Terra's surface, massive generators were powering up. Hidden weapon systems emerged from camouflaged positions. Orbital platforms disguised as communication satellites revealed their true nature. Sarah's ship reached the planet first and seemed to take position in orbit. The other human vessels spread out around the system, looking like they were trying to form some kind of defense line. Kethvar studied the formation and laughed again. "They think they can stop us with those few ships? This will be over quickly." He opened a channel to his entire fleet. "Warriors of the hegemony, today we claim this world for our own. These humans dare to stand against us, but they are weak. Show them the price of defying our will." The Zephyrian warships moved into attack formation, their weapons charged with deadly energy. Victory seemed certain, but Sarah Chen sat calmly in her command chair watching the aliens approach. Her crew worked quietly around her, and she could see the determination in their eyes. These people had families on New Terra. They had friends in other human colonies. They would not let invaders harm what they had built. "Ma'am," called her tactical officer, "all units are in position." Sarah nodded. Around the system, the trap was set. The aliens had taken the bait perfectly. Now they would learn why humans posted warning signs at their borders. "Signal the fleet," Sarah ordered. "Tell them it's time to send our guests home." The message went out on quantum frequencies, reaching every human ship and station in the system. In response, space itself seemed to come alive with hidden power. The Zephyrians were about to discover that humans had a very special way of handling uninvited visitors. The Zephyrian fleet moved toward New Terra like predators closing in on prey. Admiral Kethvar felt excited as he watched his ships spread into attack formation. Soon this world would belong to the hegemony, and these weak humans would learn their place. But across the galaxy, something much bigger was happening. On Earth, in a deep underground facility, Fleet Admiral Marcus Torres stood before a massive holographic display. The old soldier had gray hair and scars from battles fought decades ago. Around him, the most important military leaders of humanity gathered for an emergency meeting. "Show me everything," Torres ordered. The display filled with red warning signals from 3 different parts of human space. In the Kepler system, the Zephyrian fleet was approaching New Terra. In the Vega sector, crystalline ships belonging to the Vexi Consortium had crossed human borders. Far in the outer rim, energy beings called the Phantom Collective had appeared near human mining stations. 3 different species, reported Intelligence Director Park. All attacking at the same time. "This isn't coincidence," Torres nodded grimly. "They planned this together. They think we're weak and divided." He turned to face the other officers. "Time to show them how wrong they are." He pressed a button on his command console. Across human space, a special signal went out to ships, stations, and planets that most people didn't even know existed. "Activate Protocol 7, Torres announced. "All uninvited guests get the same treatment." In asteroid fields throughout human territory, what looked like floating rocks suddenly came to life. Hidden engines ignited, weapon systems powered up. Ships that had been sleeping for years woke up and began moving toward battle. Near gas giant planets, what appeared to be research stations revealed their true nature. Massive doors opened in their hulls, releasing squadrons of fighters that had been waiting in the shadows. In empty space between stars, pieces of cosmic debris that had drifted for decades suddenly changed course. These weren't random chunks of metal and ice. They were human warships wearing perfect disguises, waiting for the day they would be needed. Back in the Kepler system, Captain Sarah Chen watched the Zephyrian fleet advance. Her small ship looked helpless compared to the alien dreadnoughts, but she wasn't worried. She had received Admiral Torres's signal. Help was coming. "Captain," called her sensor officer. "2 more human ships are approaching." Sarah smiled. The corvette Steadfast and Reliant dropped out of hyperspace and took positions near her ship. To the aliens, it looked like humanity was gathering its few defenders for a desperate last stand. Admiral Kethvar saw the human reinforcements and laughed. 3 ships against 12? These humans are even more foolish than I thought. He ordered 2 of his vessels to engage the human ships while the rest continued toward the planet. The alien warships opened fire with weapons that could melt mountains. But something strange happened. The human ships moved in ways that shouldn't be possible. They dodged attacks that should have destroyed them. Their shields absorbed energy blasts that should have torn them apart. "How are they doing that?" demanded Kethvar's weapons officer. "I don't know, sir. Their technology is much more advanced than our scans suggested." The 3 human ships fought brilliantly, but they were still outnumbered. After a fierce battle, they broke off and retreated toward New Terra. The Zephyrians cheered, thinking they had won. But Sarah Chen wasn't retreating in defeat. She was drawing the aliens exactly where she wanted them to go. On New Terra, the colonists completed their preparations. What had looked like a peaceful farming world now bristled with hidden weapons. Governor Elena Vasquez stood in the main command bunker, watching the alien fleet approach on her screens. "All defense platforms are ready," reported her military chief. "The orbital grid is online. Ground forces are in position." Elena nodded. "Remember, we need to make this look good. Let them think they're winning until it's too late." High above the planet, the civilian evacuation ships that had been leaving the surface suddenly stopped. Their cargo holds opened, revealing advanced weapon systems. The transport vessels transformed into floating fortresses, taking positions around New Terra. But the Zephyrians saw this as panic. "Look," Kethvar pointed at the ships. "They're so desperate they're trying to turn cargo haulers into warships." His fleet reached orbit and prepared to attack. The planet looked defenseless below them. A few scattered defense platforms tried to stop them, but the alien weapons easily destroyed the human installations. "This is almost too easy," Kethvar muttered. Something felt wrong, but he couldn't figure out what. In the Vega sector, the crystalline Vex-High were having similar thoughts. Their ships looked like floating diamonds, beautiful and deadly. They had easily brushed aside human patrol vessels and were approaching a mining colony. The humans seemed to be evacuating in panic, but Vex-High sensors detected something odd. The fleeing ships were moving in very specific patterns, as if following a plan. "Perhaps the humans are more organized than we thought," suggested the Vex-High commander. "It doesn't matter," replied the fleet leader. "Their weapons cannot harm our crystal hulls. We are invincible." Far in the outer rim, the Phantom Collective was discovering that human space was full of surprises. The energy beings had no physical bodies, existing as pure thought and power. They moved through space like ghosts, attacking human outposts without warning. But every time they struck, they found the bases empty. The humans had evacuated just before the attacks, as if they knew the phantoms were coming. "How do they predict our movements?" wondered the collective's leader. The answer was simple but terrifying. Humanity had been watching and waiting. For decades, they had prepared for this exact scenario. Every human world, ship, and station was connected by quantum communication networks that could send information instantly across the galaxy. When one human outpost detected alien movement, every other facility knew about it within seconds. When scouts reported enemy ship designs, that information was immediately shared with every human commander. The 3 alien species thought they were fighting separate battles against isolated human colonies. They had no idea they were facing a single, coordinated enemy that had been planning this defense for years. Admiral Torres watched the developing battles from his command center on Earth. The holographic displays showed all 3 fronts, and he could see the alien fleets walking into carefully prepared traps. "Phase 2 is complete," reported his aide. "All enemy forces are committed to their attacks." "Good," Torres replied. "Now let's show them what happens when you come to human space uninvited." He activated another control, and across the galaxy, the hidden fleet began to move. Thousands of ships that had been disguised as asteroids, space junk, and derelict vessels, suddenly revealed their true nature. The largest deception was about to be revealed. Humanity had spent generations building this hidden armada, while they appeared to have only small patrol fleets and modest defenses. Their real military power had been scattered and hidden throughout their territory. Every abandoned space station was actually a weapons platform. Every mining operation was a military base. Every research vessel was a warship in disguise. The aliens had been fooled by the greatest magic trick in galactic history. Now the illusion was about to end, and they would see humanity's true face. In the Kepler system, Captain Sarah Chen received the final signal from Admiral Torres. Around her, space began to change as the hidden fleet emerged from its hiding places. All units, she broadcast on secure channels. It's time to extend our invitation. Show our guests the way home. Admiral Kethavar prepared to claim his prize. New Terra hung in space before him like a ripe fruit waiting to be picked. His 12 warships moved into bombardment formation, ready to destroy any resistance the humans might offer. Begin the attack, he ordered. Target their defense platforms first, then the population centers. The Zephyrian weapons fired with devastating power. Energy beams that could vaporize steel struck the human orbital defenses. Kethavar expected to see the platforms explode into fragments. Instead, something impossible happened. The human defenses absorbed the attack. Blue energy shields flared to life around each platform, deflecting the alien weapons like they were nothing. What? Kethavar's mandibles clicked in confusion. How are they doing that? His weapons officer checked his instruments frantically. Sir, their shields are adapting to our energy frequency. They're learning from each shot we fire. Before Kethavar could respond, the human platforms returned fire. But these weren't the weak weapons his sensors had detected earlier. Massive particle beams lanced out from hidden gun ports, striking his ships with terrifying accuracy. The first Zephyrian destroyer vanished in a ball of fire. Impossible, Kethavar roared. Those platforms were barely armed when we scanned them. Down on New Terra's surface, Governor Elena Vasquez watched the battle from her command center. The underground facility was carved deep into the planet's bedrock, protected by layers of armor and shields that could withstand orbital bombardment. Phase 1 complete, she reported to her staff. The aliens have taken the bait. All platforms are showing their true capabilities. What the Zephyrians had seen as simple communication satellites were actually sophisticated weapons platforms. Each one contained enough firepower to destroy a city, but they had been carefully disguised to look harmless. The cargo ships that had been fleeing the planet suddenly stopped running. Their hulls split open like flowers, revealing advanced weapon systems that had been hidden inside. Within minutes, the transport vessels became orbital fortresses, surrounding the alien fleet. Kethavar realized he had made a terrible mistake. This is a trap. All ships, prepare for... His words were cut off as space around his fleet suddenly filled with new contacts. What his sensors had registered as asteroids and space debris were now revealing their true nature. The rocks weren't rocks at all. They were human warships wearing perfect camouflage. Dozens of them had been drifting in the system for years, waiting for this moment. Their fake asteroid shells fell away, revealing sleek hulls bristling with weapons. Admiral, his sensor officer screamed, I'm reading 47 new human ships. They were hiding in the asteroid field, but that wasn't the worst surprise. In the empty space between the planets, more ships were appearing. These vessels seemed to materialize from nothing, their quantum cloaking fields shutting down to reveal the hidden fleet. Captain Sarah Chen's voice came over the communication channels, calm and professional. Zephyrian vessels, you are completely surrounded. Surrender now and you will not be harmed. Kethavar looked at his tactical display in horror. The 3 small human ships he had been chasing were now supported by over 60 warships. Each one was smaller than his dreadnoughts, but they moved with perfect coordination like parts of a single organism. They planned this, he whispered. They've been planning this for years. The truth was even more terrifying than he imagined. Every human colony world was protected by this kind of hidden defense network. What appeared to be peaceful farming communities were actually fortress worlds, with enough military power to defend against entire fleets. The humans had learned a bitter lesson centuries ago. Looking weak invited attack, but looking too strong made enemies strike first, so they had chosen a third path. They appeared weak while building incredible hidden strength. In the Vega sector, the crystalline Vexhi were discovering the same truth. Their diamond-like ships had easily destroyed the few human patrol vessels they encountered, but now space around them was filling with enemies. "Where are they all coming from?" demanded the Vex High Fleet commander. His answer came in the form of weapons fire unlike anything they had ever seen. The humans had studied Vex High technology for decades, learning that the crystal beings were vulnerable to specific harmonic frequencies. Now they unleashed weapons designed specifically to shatter crystalline hulls. The beautiful diamond ships began to crack and break apart as human sonic weapons found their resonant frequencies. Far in the outer rim, the energy beings of the Phantom Collective faced their own nightmare. The humans had somehow prepared for their attack. Despite the Phantom's ability to move unseen through space, containment fields activated around the energy creatures, trapping them in specially designed prison systems. The Phantoms discovered that their incorporeal nature, which made them nearly invulnerable to most weapons, was useless against human technology that had been built specifically to counter their abilities. Back in the Kepler system, the battle was reaching its climax. Admiral Kethvar's fleet was completely surrounded by human ships that fought with impossible coordination. Every time his weapons targeted one vessel, 3 others would move to protect it. When his ships tried to maneuver, the humans anticipated every move. "How do they coordinate so perfectly?" his tactical officer asked in despair. The answer lay in humanity's greatest military innovation, the quantum communication network. Every human ship, station, and soldier was connected to a system that allowed instant communication across any distance. They didn't fight as individual units. They fought as a single galaxy-spanning organism. Sarah Chen's ship moved through the battle like a conductor leading an orchestra. Her crew didn't just control their own vessel. They helped coordinate the entire defense network, sharing targeting data and tactical information with every other human unit in the system. "Target the flagship," she ordered. "Let's end this quickly." 20 human ships focused their fire on Kethvar's dreadnought. The alien vessel's shields flared and failed under the concentrated assault. Emergency alarms screamed throughout the bridge as systems overloaded and failed. "Admiral," his communications officer called out. "The humans are offering terms." Kethvar, his pride shattered along with his fleet, listened to Sarah's calm voice. "Admiral Kethvar, your ships are disabled and your fleet is destroyed. You have 2 choices. Surrender and be treated according to the laws of war, or continue fighting and be destroyed." Around him, his once mighty warships were nothing but drifting hulks. The human weapons had been surgically precise, disabling engines and weapons while leaving life support intact. It was a level of accuracy that spoke of incredible skill and technology. For the first time in his life, the proud Zephyrian warrior felt fear. These humans weren't the weak creatures he had expected. They were apex predators disguised as prey. We surrender," he said, the words bitter in his throat. Sarah's response was immediate and professional. "Understood. Prepare to be boarded. Medical teams are standing by to treat your wounded." Even in victory, the humans showed mercy. Medical ships moved among the disabled alien vessels, offering aid to the injured. Human Marines boarded the ships not as conquerors, but as peacekeepers ensuring the safety of the survivors. But Kethvar knew this wasn't really mercy. It was something much more frightening. The humans were so confident in their superiority that they could afford to be generous. They had crushed his fleet so completely that the survivors posed no threat at all. On New Terra, Governor Vasquez received reports from across human space. All 3 alien invasion fleets had been defeated simultaneously. The coordinated attack had been turned into a coordinated defeat. "Casualties?" she asked. "Minimal on our side," came the reply. "The aliens never got close enough to cause serious damage. Most of their ships were disabled rather than destroyed." Elena nodded. This was exactly what they had planned for. The hidden defense network wasn't just about winning battles. It was about sending a message to the galaxy. Humanity was not weak, and they were not to be underestimated. The trap had worked perfectly. Now came the most important part of the operation, making sure every other species in the galaxy understood what had happened here. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as 3 of its most powerful military forces were crushed in a single day. What should have been easy victories for the alien invaders had turned into complete disasters. Admiral Kethvar sat in his disabled flagship staring at the tactical display that showed the wreckage of his fleet. Around his ship, human vessels moved with calm efficiency, rescuing survivors and securing the area. The humans worked with the kind of quiet professionalism that only came from years of practice. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "the humans are requesting all our military records and fleet deployment data." Kethavar's forearms trembled with rage and shame. "And if we refuse?" Through the view screen he could see the human ships surrounding them. Each vessel was smaller than his destroyed dreadnoughts, but they moved with terrifying coordination. When one ship adjusted its position, 3 others moved to support it. When sensors swept an area, the data was instantly shared with every other vessel in the fleet. "I don't think refusal is an option, sir," the officer replied. Admiral Marcus Torres stood in his command center on Earth, watching reports flow in from across human space. The holographic displays showed the same story in 3 different sectors: total human victory with minimal casualties. "Status report," he ordered. "Kepler system secure," came the first report. "Zephyrian fleet destroyed or disabled. 12 ships, minimal survivors. Vega sector clear," called another officer. "Vex High Consortium forces eliminated. Their crystal ships couldn't handle our harmonic weapons." "Outer rim clean," reported a third voice. "Phantom Collective contained in energy prison systems. They're completely helpless." Torres nodded with satisfaction. Protocol 7 had worked exactly as planned. But this wasn't just about winning 3 battles. This was about changing how the galaxy saw humanity. "Begin Phase 4, he ordered. "Time to send our message." In the Kepler system, Captain Sarah Chen boarded Admiral Kethavar's flagship. The Zephyrian bridge was a mess of sparking electronics and broken equipment, but the life support systems still worked. Human engineers were already repairing critical systems to keep the survivors alive. Kethavar looked up as Sarah approached. She was much smaller than him, a human woman who barely reached his shoulder. But after what he had witnessed, size didn't matter anymore. "You planned all of this," he said. It wasn't a question. Sarah nodded. "We've been preparing for uninvited guests for over 50 years, Admiral. Your species isn't the first to think humans look like easy prey." She gestured to a portable holographic display her team had brought aboard. The image showed the Kepler system, but not as Kethavar had seen it earlier. This display revealed the truth: hidden weapons platforms, disguised warships, camouflaged defense networks. "Every human system is protected like this," Sarah explained. "We don't build big fleets that enemies can see and target. We build hidden networks that can respond to any threat." Kethavar studied the display with growing horror. "How many ships do you really have?" "Enough," Sarah replied simply. "More than enough to defend ourselves from anyone who thinks they can take what belongs to us." She activated another section of the display, showing similar networks throughout human space. Hundreds of systems, thousands of hidden ships, weapons platforms that could appear from nowhere when needed. "This is impossible," Kethavar whispered. "No species could build so much in secret." "You're thinking like a conqueror," Sarah said. "You build fleets to attack others. We build networks to protect what's ours. Every human world contributes to the defense of every other human world. We've been doing this for generations." In the Vega sector, the Vex High were learning the same lesson. Their beautiful crystal ships lay shattered in space, broken by weapons that had been designed specifically to counter their technology. The few survivors found themselves facing human officers who knew more about Vex High biology and culture than many Vex High did themselves. "How long have you been studying us?" asked the Vex High commander. "Since your ships first appeared near our borders 20 years ago," replied the human admiral. "We study every species we encounter. We learn their strengths, their weaknesses, their military doctrines. Knowledge is the best defense." The crystal being's light flickered with something like fear. "You've been preparing to fight us for 20 years?" "We've been preparing to defend ourselves for 20 years, the human corrected. "There's a difference. We never wanted to fight you. We just wanted to be ready if you decided to fight us." Far in the outer rim, the energy beings of the Phantom Collective were trapped in containment fields that turned their own power against them. They had expected to sweep through human space like ghosts, taking what they wanted without resistance. Instead, they found that humanity had developed technology specifically designed to contain energy-based life forms. The humans had somehow anticipated their abilities and prepared countermeasures. Impossible, pulsed the collective's leader. No physical species could understand our nature well enough to build these prisons. The human commander smiled grimly. We've been dealing with energy beings for decades. You're not as unique as you think. We've learned from every encounter, every contact, every piece of data we could gather. The truth was even more impressive than the aliens realized. Humanity's intelligence network spread throughout the galaxy, gathering information on every species, every technology, every potential threat. They didn't just react to dangers. They predicted them and prepared for them years in advance. On Earth, Admiral Torres activated the final phase of Protocol 7. Across human space, specially prepared messages began transmitting to every known alien civilization. The messages included complete tactical recordings of all 3 battles, along with detailed analysis of how each invasion force had been defeated. But the most important part of the message was simple. You are welcome to visit human space as invited guests. Follow proper diplomatic protocols, and you will find us generous hosts. Enter without permission, and you will discover why we post warning signs at our borders. The recordings spread throughout the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had been considering their own attacks on human territory suddenly reconsidered their plans. The footage showed not just human military power, but human restraint and mercy. The aliens had been defeated completely, but the survivors were being treated well. This was perhaps the most frightening thing of all. The humans were so confident in their strength that they could afford to be kind to their enemies. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy's political landscape shifted dramatically. Trade routes that had avoided human space suddenly became busy with alien merchants seeking human goods. Diplomatic missions that had been delayed for years were suddenly fast-tracked to establish formal relations. Species that had thought of humans as weak prey now saw them as powerful potential allies. The message was clear. Humanity was not to be underestimated, but they were reasonable beings who preferred trade to war. Admiral Kethavar and the other surviving commanders were given comfortable quarters aboard human ships while their governments decided what to do next. They were treated as prisoners of war, not as criminals, despite having invaded human territory. But they were also required to study human culture and history as part of their confinement. What they learned changed their understanding of humanity forever. Humans didn't just fight to win, they fought to protect their way of life. They valued concepts like hospitality, consent, and sovereignty above conquest and domination. They had built their hidden military network, not to attack others, but to ensure that no one could force them to abandon these values. The galaxy was learning that humanity had a very simple philosophy. Treat them with respect, and they would be the best friends anyone could ask for. Try to take what belonged to them without permission, and they would become the worst enemies anyone could imagine. The choice, as always, was up to their visitors. 3 months after the failed invasions, the galaxy had changed forever. Admiral Marcus Torres stood in his office on Earth, looking out at the busy spaceport beyond the windows. Ships from dozens of alien species waited in orderly lines for permission to enter human space. Each vessel followed proper diplomatic protocols. Each crew had submitted detailed requests for their visits. Each captain understood that humans took the concept of invited guests very seriously. "Sir," his aide reported, "the final prisoner exchange is ready to begin." Torres nodded. "Send them home." In the Kepler system, Admiral Kethavar stood on the observation deck of a specially designed transport vessel. The ship was comfortable but impossible to escape from. Every system was controlled by human technology that he couldn't override or understand. Around him, the other surviving Zephyrian officers waited in silence. They had spent 3 months learning about human culture, studying human history, and trying to understand how they had been defeated so completely. The lessons had been humbling. Humans didn't fight for conquest or glory. They fought to protect their families, their homes, their way of life. They had built their hidden military network over generations, each person contributing something to the common defense. "Admiral," one of his officers said quietly, "do you think our government will try to attack them again?" Kethavar looked at the tactical data the humans had allowed them to keep. It showed only a small fraction of humanity's true military power, but it was enough to make any sane military planner think twice about attacking human space. No, he said finally, not after they see what we've learned here. The transport ship engaged its hyperdrive, carrying the Zephyrian survivors back to their home territory. Similar ships were leaving from the Vega sector and the Outer Rim, returning the survivors of the other failed invasions to their governments. But each group carried the same cargo: complete tactical recordings of their defeats, detailed analysis of human military capabilities, and a simple message from Admiral Torres. The message was delivered personally to each alien government by their own returning survivors. The words were the same in every language. Invitation protocols exist for a reason. You are welcome to visit human space as friends, following proper diplomatic channels. Uninvited guests receive a one-way ticket to whatever afterlife they believe in. The message was accompanied by footage that made even the most aggressive military leaders pause. The recording showed human ships emerging from perfect camouflage, human weapon systems that could adapt to any threat, and human coordination that seemed almost magical in its precision. But most importantly, the footage showed human mercy. Despite having the power to destroy their enemies completely, the humans had chosen to disable rather than kill. They had treated prisoners well, cared for the wounded, and sent survivors home with warnings rather than executing them. This restraint was more frightening than any weapon. It showed confidence so complete that humans could afford to be generous to their enemies. On Earth, Torres watched the diplomatic consequences unfold. Within weeks of the prisoner exchanges, formal peace treaties arrived from all three attacking species. The documents were carefully worded, but the message was clear. None of these civilizations wanted to test human defenses again. More importantly, trade agreements followed the peace treaties. Species that had seen humans as prey now saw them as valuable partners. Human agricultural products, manufactured goods, and technology became highly sought after throughout the galaxy. The transformation was remarkable. Human space, which had been seen as a tempting target for expansion, was now recognized as neutral territory where different species could meet and trade safely. Captain Sarah Chen returned to her patrol duties aboard the Defiance Edge, but her job had become much easier. Instead of watching for hostile intruders, she now helped guide invited guests through proper entry procedures. "Captain," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving a request from a Vex High trade convoy. They want permission to visit New Terra." Sarah smiled. "Are their papers in order?" "Yes, ma'am. Full diplomatic credentials, trade manifests, and a formal request for permission to enter the system. Grant them safe passage. Assign them a guide ship to escort them to the trade station." This had become the new normal. Species that had once considered attacking human space now sent polite requests for permission to visit. They followed human laws, respected human customs, and conducted their business peacefully. The hidden defense network was still there, of course. The disguised warships still waited among the asteroids. The camouflaged weapons platforms still watched the borders, and the quantum communication system still connected every human facility across the galaxy. But now the network served a different purpose. Instead of preparing for invasion, it maintained the peace that humanity's strength had created. On New Terra, Governor Elena Vasquez welcomed a delegation of alien merchants to her world. The Zephyrians came as invited guests this time, seeking to establish trade relationships and cultural exchange programs. The irony wasn't lost on anyone present. Some of these same aliens had tried to conquer New Terra just months earlier. Now they were asking permission to build trade stations and cultural centers on the planet's surface. "Governor," the lead Zephyrian diplomat said through his translator, "we wish to apologize for our previous misunderstanding. We did not realize that humans valued proper protocol so highly." Elena smiled diplomatically. "We believe that good relationships start with mutual respect. You're welcome here as long as you remember that." The diplomatic revolution spread throughout the galaxy. Species that had never cooperated before began working together under human mediation. The humans had become neutral arbitrators, too powerful for anyone to threaten, too fair for anyone to distrust. Trade routes that had been closed for centuries reopened as different species began trusting human protection. Scientific expeditions that had been impossible due to territorial disputes now proceeded under human oversight. Humanity had done more than defend their territory. They had become the galaxy's peacekeepers, not through conquest, but through demonstrated strength combined with consistent fairness. Admiral Torres received daily reports of this new galactic order from his command center on Earth. The transformation still amazed him. 3 military defeats had accomplished more for galactic peace than centuries of diplomatic negotiations. "Sir," his aide reported, "we're receiving applications from 17 different species requesting permission to establish permanent embassies in human space." "Approved," Torres replied. "But make sure they understand our rules. Invited guests are always welcome. Uninvited ones still get the same treatment as always." The hidden fleets remained hidden. The defense network stayed active, and the quantum communication system continued to connect every human facility. But now these systems protected not just humanity, but a growing community of species that had learned to respect human sovereignty. The galaxy had learned that humans made excellent hosts, but terrible enemies. More importantly, they had learned that the choice between those two outcomes was entirely up to the visitors. Captain Sarah Chen stood on her bridge, watching as another convoy of alien ships approached the border of human space. Each vessel flew the proper diplomatic flags. Each crew had submitted the correct paperwork, and each captain understood that they were entering human territory as invited guests. The warning buoys still floated at the edge of human space, but now they were respected rather than ignored. The message was the same as always: "Welcome to human space. Please follow proper protocols for entry." The difference was that now everyone listened. The galaxy had learned that humans kept their promises. Invited guests were treated with warmth and generosity. Uninvited guests received exactly what the warning signs promised: a one-way ticket home, assuming they survived the journey. It was a simple system, but it worked perfectly. Respect human sovereignty, and they would be your best friends. Violate it, and they would be your worst nightmare. The choice, as Admiral Torres often said, was always up to the visitors.